Hi everyone, my name's Anne. Welcome to Art on the Creek. Today is Wednesday, which means it is beginner watercolor lesson day. And since we're in February, the month of romance, last week we did the sunset. Today we're going to do some good, fun conversation hearts. Are you ready? Let's paint some candy. We're all set. I've got our Winsor Newton paints, which I wanted to bring up one thing. I didn't clean it after last week's session, and you don't have to. So don't worry about cleaning your palette every single time. It's just not necessary. So, I have my sustenance. Let's keep those handy. That's the way to my heart. Chocolate. Is that true for you too? I tell you, I'm a fan. Okay, I've got, our picture is from Pixabay. Let me first explain real quick why I use Pixabay or a site like Unsplash or Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S, for reference photos. You want them to be royalty free. All of the artists that submit anything, or people in general who submit things to Pixabay or any of those sites, they're giving the universe permission to use it and do what they want with it. Now, there's some fine print in there, and you can get into that, especially with portraiture. You can read all about what the exact licensing is. But in the art community, we want to be very careful to respect everyone. And sometimes we can't get out of the house to take a good picture. Maybe, like me today, I don't have any candy hearts in the house. So it's always best if you can take your own picture. But if you do have to use a reference, if you're using something like a post that you saw on Instagram or Pinterest or something like that, just remember that you can't sell that. That's someone else's property. The laws are so finely tuned on copyright, and you just don't want to get into it. So I just wanted to briefly go over that real quick. We have a nice little arrangement here of candy hearts, and I like the way this is done because there's a spray of candy hearts in the back and then these few in front. So what I want to concentrate on, since our paper's kind of small, is just those 6 candy hearts in the front. So let's start with this one on the left here that says soulmate. Now, a candy heart is kind of softly curved in the middle. It doesn't have a point that it comes down to. So that'll be the cleft in the middle. And then we're going to come around like this, and they're kind of chubby. They're not really, kind of come to a point, but not really. And they're not really pointy like a heart that you would cut out of paper. They're pillowy. That's the word I want. They're pillowy. And let's see, then we've got this side that comes down here because they are 3-dimensional. And this side comes down a little closer, comes about to here. And then we have our curve. Whoops, turn this way so that I can control my pencil a little more accurately. There we go. There's our first one. I'm going to jump way ahead here. We'll just speed this up. If you're not comfortable drawing hearts, that's okay. A real easy way to do it is to look down in the description, click on the link and print out a black and white copy of the photo, of the reference photo. And then you can go over the parts that you want to paint with a Sharpie, and then tape that to your window. Put your watercolor paper on top of that. Of course, you will have to take it off of our block. And then trace from there just with the light of the window shining through. Lots of ways you can do it if you're not comfortable drawing, or if you want it to look a little bit more accurate. Mine ended up at many different sizes, which for me is okay. But if you're really looking to create an exact replica, maybe tracing the hearts would be a good idea. So let's go on to the end of our drawing now, and then we'll catch up and see where we're at. All right, one of my hearts is definitely bigger than the others, but you know what? I'm okay with that. Let's start out this time with the background. I'm using my Princeton Snap 3/4 inch stroke brush, and I'm just going to get the background wet just like we typically have done in the past, going around the hearts. And I'm going to work in sections because I am in Colorado and it is so dry here. And actually, you know, this is just a good suggestion for anyone regardless of their climate, but I just want to work in sections because I want to get the pink of the plate, but I want it to be real loose. So I will show you what I'm doing here. I've got our paints, and this is the alizarin crimson. I'm going to make a new well of that. So that's kind of about the consistency of skim milk right there. But now what I'm going to do is go into my white. I'm just showing you how to use this Chinese white. Because it's in there, we might as well learn how to use it. It's really great for making pastels. Now what this will do is give you a little bit of opacity to this. Got some black in there that kind of dulled it down a little, so we'll bump it up with some more pink. So that's what I'm going to do first, is put that in the background. And since that's what I'm using all over, I really don't need to rinse my brush completely well each time. I just want to be able to pull this water around in a way that it's not going to dry somewhere and give me a hard edge. So we want to work in sections because we're going for a little bit of wet on wet, which will give us a softer background, just a nice subtle variances in color. It'll almost kind of take on a velvet or suede look. And we can avoid hard edges that way too. So you don't have to clean your brush between every section that you're working on because you're using the same color throughout. So whatever value of that red that you put down, if it's just very runny and still on your brush, or if you just dipped into the palette, you know, you can certainly just get your brush wet and pull that around, and then we'll have a wet surface to work on. Right there in the bottom right, I think I had hand lotion on my hand and I set it on the paper. Because I've never had that much of a resist effect happen before, but it turned out to be a non-issue, which I'm really grateful for. I thought I was going to have to start the whole thing over, but it worked just fine. So just a heads up, beware of that with hand lotion. I can't believe I did that. I knew that wasn't the possibility, but I don't know, my hands are dry, I guess. At any rate, moving on. Now let's add a bit of a vignette to this, and that's going to give this wet on wet look just a really nice finish, because what it'll do is it'll bring that focus into the center. And with our vignette, we're just going to use a stronger bit of red on the corners. I'm going to take more of that alizarin crimson and punch that up a little and just kind of come in and make some vibrant strokes around the edges. Not adding any white to it this time. Just the alizarin crimson. And that's going to give me kind of a vignette. It'll be subtle, but it'll be there. And do you see these hard edges that are starting to develop here? I'm just going to take my brush and agitate that pigment a little. Take it up into where the conversation heart is and blend it around, because you can see by the time I got around to the other side of the paper, this side had dried. So sometimes I feel like I'm constantly chasing my tail, trying to keep the paper workable level of wetness, but you know, it always works out. When I was growing up, I must have been 16. I wanted a boyfriend so badly. I remember sitting on the steps. My bedroom was upstairs, and I came downstairs, and I was crying and crying. And I told my mom, I don't understand it. Why doesn't anyone like me? I want a boyfriend so badly, and I don't have a boyfriend. And do you know what my mother told me? She said, boyfriend, to a 16-year-old girl. Why do you want a boyfriend? You can date when you're 30. Okay, so Mom, I mean, you know, and of course what she meant, I love my mom. She was a wonderful woman, very smart, very wise, hilarious. But what she meant by that misguided comment was she had the most fun in her life when she was in her 30s. So I learned from my mother and from about 1 million other people to consider the source and realize that most people mean good. I think so. I think most people mean well. I did not have a boyfriend in high school. I am 6'2", as you know, and a lot of guys don't really like to date tall girls. At least they didn't in the 70s and 80s in my high school. I graduated in the early 80s from high school, and then I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, and that is where I met the love of my life, who, funny enough, grew up in the same city that I lived in, and we probably went to the same grocery store. We never ran into each other until college. And it was love at first sight. No, it wasn't. It was not love at first sight, but it was happily ever after, and that's what matters. Now you'll notice I was not the most accurate here, and I want to show you why that's okay. I'm going to switch to my number 4. We haven't really used our number 6 yet, which is okay. I'm going to use a number 4 so that I can be a little more precise here. But I'm just getting it wet, and I'm going to agitate the pigment here. This is why I love these paints and this paper, because all you need to do is agitate that, get it wet again, and then you can lift that out. Now, you may not be able to lift it out completely, but you can sure make it better than it was. All right, so since I've just played with that one, let's go over here and look at this guy. And in the picture, he's pink. That's fine with me. Let's go ahead and get back into that alizarin crimson. And since our plate is pink, we're going to need to make this a little bit bolder. So I've still got some of that white in there from the pink before, but what I want to do is change the tone just a touch. So I'm going to go into our cadmium yellow just a little bit and kind of coral that up a bit. So that's it. We're just warming it up just a touch. And let's paint this one in. We're at first going to do the entire heart. Keep that pigment toward the bottom, because we've got our light sources coming from this way. So we want to keep that pigment down here. And you can see I didn't go all the way up on the heart. And now with a wet brush, I'm just going to agitate that around and get that to go all the way to the edge. But when this dries, we'll have a gradient of light to dark. So let's try that with our next heart. Looks like we're dealing with yellow. And I'm going to do the lemon yellow on this one. So let's mix up some lemon yellow. And if you like to, you can mix the white with this. I'm just going to do a plain lemon yellow on this one, keeping it pretty thin, about the consistency of skim milk. And same thing, we're going to keep that pigment toward the bottom. Going with just a little more concentration of pigment there. Rinse the brush, and then just pull that pigment around the heart. Now what we can do is go into our cadmium yellow, which is the warm yellow, and drop in along that front ridge, and then we'll take our wet brush and just pull that up just a little bit. So we did all of that while it was still wet. And you don't want to have too much water. I've got quite a bit of water on here, actually. Let me clean this up a bit. I'll put some more paint down here. You don't want to have too much water on it. Just enough. Can you see about how much? It looks pretty even in wetness. That's what we're looking for. All right, now the one over here is blue, and that's going to be fun because we already have, not just a touch, we already have some ultramarine blue here from last time. So let's get just a little bit more. I like that ultramarine blue. It's a good one to use. Oh, I guess it's green. I'm sorry. My computer just turned back on and it was green. So in that case, we've got the ultramarine blue. Let's add a touch of lemon yellow to that. And we'll mix a nice green. Since that is looking a little bit dull, let's add some white to it. We'll just turn that into a pastel green. There we go, that's kind of nice. There we go. So that's ultramarine blue, lemon yellow, and then add your white to bring it up to however you want. That's kind of, boy, that'd be a nice wall color, wouldn't it? Now, see, now it looks blue again. I don't know what's going on with my computer, guys. But we're going to have this in here, and you can see it's kind of going to be a nice gray-green. And let's put a little bit darker on this side here. And same thing, we'll use our wet brush to just move that pigment around. And now let's just go into that ultramarine blue and blue this up just a little bit. And let's drop in some shadow here. Might look a little weird right now, but trust me on this. I think once it dries, we'll have a nice Necco wafer looking heart. Isn't that what these things are? They're kind of like, are they peppermint? I don't remember what flavor they are. What's your favorite Valentine's candy? My favorite Valentine candy by far, and it doesn't even have to be Valentine's Day. This is my favorite candy by far year round, is from C's Chocolates. I just love their candy. I love their chocolate. Their toffee is my favorite. By the time I'm done with this video, I'm going to make you guys so hungry. I do like Valentine's Day. It's just fun to have a holiday that's centered around candy. At least in my mind, that's what it is. So this purple that we've mixed is the ultramarine blue in with that alizarin crimson, and we've got it looking really pretty dark, but all you need to do is use a watered down version of it. And then if you get a little too much, whenever you dip your paint into the brush, rather, you'll notice that I tap it off on the paper towel over there. And that is just so I don't have this huge amount of paint going down so that I can control the water. Because remember, with watercolor, it's all about the level of water. So what you want to do is to have just enough, not too much and not too little. So, but in order to achieve that, oftentimes what you'll need to do is get your brush wet, get it in the pigment, and then just tap your brush on a paper towel. And that just seems to end up being a really good routine to get into. Pretty soon you'll do it without even thinking. Now here we've done the purple one and another yellow one. Now let's go into this Prussian blue that was left over from our previous painting of the sunset. We'll add some more Prussian blue into it, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back into that Chinese white. And let's kind of make this kind of a chambray blue, like those denim shirts that were so popular, or a Western shirt, and just that light denim color. And let's catch up here and see how this is going. Painting, so we're going to be okay. Paint that outer edge and then come in with a wet brush just to spread it around. I should say damp brush. It's not really a wet brush. Oh, look how cute. All right, now guess what? We get to dry it again. Now that it's dry, let's go in and we'll start same order. Let's get our brush wet. Go over the entire heart. Go into the cadmium yellow, and I've got a pretty thick paint on my brush here. A little bit of dot along the bottom, and then we'll rinse the brush and spread that pigment around. And after you've repeated that process on all 6 hearts, you see up there on the top right, I accidentally dropped some water on this, but you know what? This is actually going to make it a lot of fun. We're going to just add some little confetti onto this, and I'm intentionally dropping little droplets of water all around in just random locations, and then we'll give it just a couple minutes to sit, and then we can blot that up, and you'll see we'll create a really great effect. Now we've got this has been sitting here for a while. Let's just try and blot it up with a paper towel. Yay! And let's look at the dots that we can make here. Oh, this is going to be kind of cute. You know, this is one of the things that I really love about watercolor, and that is that you can take these happy accidents that truly are accidents with that one drop up there in the corner and really turn them into something beautiful. I love the way the confetti turned out. Here are my colored pencils. I've got, I just keep them in a case here. These are my Prismacolors. Just going to turn it upside down so that we can still look at what we're doing here. Okay, and let's see. I want a warm yellow. So the color I'm going to go with is Yellow Ochre. This is a Prismacolor set. You don't have to have Prismacolors, but this is the set that I am going to use for this. And what I'm doing is I'm just going in and accentuating these shadows a little bit, really keeping it along the bottom edge, leaving a space right here that's open, like so. And keeping our highlight right there. And then I'm just going to very lightly come around the edge here. Okay, so there's the Yellow Ochre. Let's do that again over here. As I said, these are my Prismacolors, but you don't have to invest in Prismacolors if you don't want to. Just any set of good old school supply colored pencils will work. You're going to need a red, a yellow, a green, a blue, and a purple for this. So let's skip ahead to the end and you can see how we shade the final one and add the shadows. Kind of a light blue. Do you remember cornflower blue? That was always one of my favorite crayons. All right, I think we've got those all shaded, just a nice little bit of dimension. Now, the one thing that we have not added yet that would happen so that these aren't just floating in air, we need to have a shadow. Now, remember, our light is coming from the top here, and I'm looking for a red, darkish red that's going to work for a shadow for us. There's that one, and then let's come down here. And this shadow, I think it's more over here. Now I'm using that Dahlia purple colored pencil to put the shadows in. And of course, if you just got a regular set, you'll be using just a plain old purple. You could also use a blue that would work well with this. You'll notice that I'm making the shadow darkest right up against the edge of the heart. You almost want to start your shadow, your cast shadow, with an outline there right up against the heart, and then just very lightly shade on the outside. We're going to go into and define the edges of these just a little bit more, and you'll see that on this sped up portion here. I'm just going around and filling in those shadows, and then on all of them too, filling in those little bit of edges very lightly, just enough so that you can see it a little bit better. I just wanted to define that just a little more clearly in the image. So that we'll just finish this up and then we'll get into the lettering. Now for the letters. Now for this one, I want to use a good red here. Crimson red, that's perfect. Soulmate. Now, if this is something that you don't feel comfortable doing, you can leave these out, or you can trace them. Let's just hope I don't misspell something. How do they make their A's? That's a triangle. There's that one, Soulmate, and then this one says Sweet Talk. The big advantage of these letters is that if you look closely, you'll see that they're not all even. So if you're not really skilled in lettering, I'm not, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be even. You can even make up your own sayings. That would be kind of fun. So let's zip through to the end of this, and then we'll get some highlights on, and we are just about finished. I think we're good. I'm excited. I'm going to get the heat tool out to remove the tape without tearing the paper. Oh, so fun. I'm going to move these out of the way here. And do you remember before when I told you about bleed-proof white? Here is a chance to use it. And again, I'm going to go in with our number 4 brush. Here it is right here. We're going to add just a little bit of highlights. So just get the brush wet, get some of our bleed-proof white on. If you don't have this bleed-proof white, you can use a white gel pen. I had one here to show you, but I don't see it. Now, the light would be coming from the top, so we would have a highlight here. There's one highlight. Need a little bit more water on this. And this Sweet Talk is going to have little highlights along the top here. This whole section with the highlights and the bleed-proof white is entirely optional. If you didn't see the pop-up come up on the screen there, you could use a white colored pencil to do this, or you could just omit this step entirely. I just thought it would be kind of fun to give them a little bit of this shiny illustrative look. So let's, once again, we'll skip ahead to the end, and you can see how these highlights came out. Now, it's time to sign it. I think this is so cute. Maybe you can give it to your Valentine as a card, or you can hang it up and use it as a Valentine's Day decoration. Regardless of how you decide to celebrate and decorate with this one, I sure hope that you guys have a great Valentine's Day. I sure hope this put you in the Valentine's spirit a little bit. And I also hope that you're starting to feel a little bit more confident with some watercolor. We'll see you next week for our next lesson. Take care.